May 2016, 11. 1. Choose any two of the following passages from the Quran, and A. Briefly describe the main themes in each passage. 4. B. Briefly explain the importance of these themes in a Muslim's life today. 4. ANS, A. Themes. 1. 2.255. Theme of this long verse of a Medinian surah, Al-Baqarah, is Tawhid. It outlines God's inimitable attributes that distinguish him from his creatures. The words Al-Hayyu Al-Qayyum, the ever-living and self-subsisting, refer to his creative and sustaining force behind his existence. God is free from human weaknesses and needs such as tiredness or sleep. His authority encompasses the entire universe, and he remains totally uninfluenced in establishing his writ over his created world. The word kursi signifies both his authority and knowledge about all his domain because he is its sole creator. Therefore, none of his creations can escape his knowledge in the remotest parts of the universe. It further emphasizes God's unique right of exercising his authority to the extent that no one can intercede or plead for anyone else unless he himself grants permission for that. The passage ends with the words Huwal Aliyyu al-Azim that represent his ultimate supremacy and exaltedness. The Quran repetitively mentions God's supreme status, such as, God be exalted, the true King, the Lord of the Throne of Grace, 23:116, Al-Mu'minun. 2. 6.101-103. The three verses are part of Surah Al-An'am, a late Makkan surah. Theme of the verses is God's absolute uniqueness. They were revealed to prepare the Muslims to interact with the Christians and Jews living in Medina who had corrupted the belief of Tawhid. The passage begins with the word Badi that refers to God's power to create anything out of nothing. He only commands be and it so happens. It proceeds by rejecting any false belief of God having a son or a consort because he is far beyond any such needs or relation. The next verse stresses on God being the sole creator and having power to dispose of all affairs. These unmatchable attributes convince the Muslims to worship none but him. Verse 103 refers to God's absolutely sublime nature that keeps humans from conceptualizing him in any way. The verse further mentions his ability to have knowledge of all things. This is endorsed by another Quranic verse that says, For God is he who understands the finest mysteries. 22 hours 63 minutes, Al-Hajj. 3, Surah 1. This is the opening surah of the Quran and is a summarized version of the entire Quran. Due to its importance, it is known by many other names. It is the only surah where Tasmiyah, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, is its first verse. The first 4 verses describe God as Lord of the worlds, both known and unknown to humans, his grace and mercy, and his overlordship of the Day of Judgment. The next 2 verses teach the believers to worship God alone and seek his help. The last 2 verses ask them to beg God to show them the straight path, descended by him. It is the path followed by those who were blessed by God, not the one that incurred his anger. The right path is contained in the rest of Quran, and Sunnah of the Prophet. Another verse mentions it as, and verily you guide humans to the right path. 42:52, Al-Shura. B. Importance of themes. 1. 2.255. The passage strengthens the belief of the Muslims in Tawhid in terms of God's oneness, uniqueness, majesty, and glory. It also crystallizes the belief of Tawhid and trains them to condemn shirk as humans are vulnerable to go astray under the influence of Satan. There is repetitive mention of God's authority, unlimited knowledge and powers in order to instruct them to worship and depend on God alone. The message of this verse frees the believers from fear of all other powers, visible and invisible. By believing in God's absolute powers, Muslims tend to develop his fear, as is commanded in another verse, O you who believe, fear God as he should be feared. 3:102, Ali Imran. At the same time, this verse inculcates a sense of accountability in his court. Muslims usually recite this verse as an invocation for protection of their lives and belongings. The Prophet is reported to have said, "Whoever recited Ayatul Kursi after every obligatory prayer, nothing prevents him from entering paradise except death." Therefore, Muslims recite the Ayatul Kursi while leaving their valuables at or outside home. 2. 6.101-103. This passage helps Muslims clearly understand the belief of Tawhid in terms of God's unique nature and powers. Its main objective is to emphasize on monotheism and exclusive divine powers as against polytheism and paganism. Muslims are taught to believe in God's absolute oneness that had been corrupted by the misguided communities repeatedly in the past. Thus it removes any trace of confusion about God's entity from the hearts and minds of Muslims. The Quran reminds Muslims God's omniscience repeatedly, and He is with you wheresoever you are, 57:4, Al-Hadid. Similarly, another verse reinforces this in these words, "For we are nearer to Him, man, than His jugular vein, 50:16, QAF. It therefore removes any confusion about God's personification and configuration in order to keep the belief in Tawhid intact and pure. According to the Mufassirin commentators of Quran, when this surah was being revealed, 70,000 angels were assigned to accompany it. Therefore its recitation has a strong enlightening impact on the hearts of Muslims as they remain away from satanic misguidance. 3. Surah 1. This surah is so important that it was revealed first in Makkah and then in Medina. Its recitation is mandatory in daily prayers, as declared by the Prophet. There is no prayer salat if a person fails to recite Al-Fatiha in it. Sahihain, according to a Hadith Qudsi, when Al-Fatiha is recited sincerely and consciously as a supplication in salat, every word of it is received with grace and immediate acceptance by God. Therefore, children in all Muslim families are taught to learn this surah as part of their spiritual training. The Prophet called it, the mother of the book Kitab. According to another hadith, when the Imam finishes the surah, the Muqtadi's followers should say Ameen, may it be, as it coincides with the angels saying the same. Muslims, by reciting the surah, develop a strong hope of God's compassion. They also try to be pious because God is not only merciful but also master of the Day of Judgment. This keeps them reminding of their accountability in the divine court of justice. 2a. Describe the ways in which Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman were involved in the compilation of the Quran. 10b. The Quran should not have been compiled in written form because it did not take place during the Prophet's lifetime. Agree or disagree with this statement, giving reasons for your answer. 4. A. The Quran had not been compiled during the life of the Prophet. Circumstances changed after his death when hundreds of memorizers of Quran were killed in the Battle of Yamama during Hazrat Abu Bakr's caliphate. Hazrat Umar, sensing a danger, addressed Hazrat Abu Bakr, "I fear that there will be casualties among the readers of the Quran in different places and many things of the Quran will be lost. I consider it proper that you should pass order for the collection of the Quran." Hazrat Abu Bakr replied, "How shall I do something which the Messenger of Allah did not do?" Hazrat Umar, however, was successful in persuading the Caliph, and on the advice of Hazrat Umar, he decided to compile the Quran. Hazrat Abu Bakr asked Hazrat Zayd bin Thabit, the most authentic scribe, to collect all Quranic verses. Realizing the tediousness of the task, Hazrat Zayd said, "By God, if you had put the task of taking away a certain mountain, it would not have been heavier to me than what you have ordered me." Finally, he too was convinced, and the Caliph appointed a team of highly proficient and competent scribes to assist Hazrat Zayd in this noble task, but Hazrat Umar contributed the greatest degree of assistance. On this occasion, Hazrat Abu Bakr instructed Hazrat Zayd and Hazrat Umar, "Both of you sit on the gate of the Prophet's mosque, and whoever brings any Quranic verse along with 2 witnesses, get it written." Accordingly, Hazrat Zayd used extremely cautious and meticulous techniques in compiling the Quran. He used all the methods available and did not include any verse in his master copy of the Quran unless he had received written and verbal testimonies proving its uninterrupted succession. In addition, The verses that the Holy Prophet had arranged to be written under his own supervision were still preserved by the companions, and Hazrat Zayd collected them together to make the master copy. For this a public proclamation was made to the effect that anyone possessing any number of written verses should bring to Hazrat Zayd. When a written verse was brought to him, he would verify its authenticity by first testing its reliability against his own memory, and secondly seeking Hazrat Umar's endorsement, as the latter himself was a Hafiz. Thirdly, to make it totally flawless, he would seek 2 trustworthy witnesses who would testify to the fact that the particular verse had been written in the presence of the Holy Prophet, and finally, the written verses were matched with the collection that different companions had prepared for themselves. Each surah was written on separate folios, and so the copy was composed of many folios. In the terminology of the Quranic studies, this fair copy prepared by Hazrat Zayd is called the Mushaf, as it comprised several suhaf. The Mushaf had some distinctive features. In this, the verses were arranged in accordance with the order identified by the Holy Prophet, but the surahs were not so arranged, as they were written separately, and the purpose of preparing this copy was to prepare an organized document with the collective approval of the whole Ummah, an exercise of ijma. The Mushaf remained with Hazrat Abu Bakr, and after his death, with Hazrat Umar. After Hazrat Umar's martyrdom, it went in the custody of Hazrat Hafsa, mother of the faithful and the daughter of Hazrat Umar, and thus became known as Mushaf-i Hafsa. Hazrat Umar made arrangements for the teaching of the Quran throughout his empire. Hundreds of schools were set up throughout the Muslim empire for the teaching of the Holy Quran. Highly qualified teachers were hired for this purpose. Those companions who had memorized the Quran were sent to distant places to teach the Quran. He introduced the institution of Taraweeh prayer in Ramadan, that offered a good opportunity to the memorizers of Quran to refresh their learning it by heart. During the Caliphate of Hazrat Uthman, 644 to 656 AD, the Muslim Empire had expanded enormously to several remote non-Arab areas. According to Sahih Bukhari, Hazrat Hudayfa bin Yaman had led an army to Armenia-Azerbaijan, where he witnessed disputes among the newly converted Muslims over the way the Quran should be recited. The Syrian troops followed the dialect of Miqdad bin Aswad and Abu al-Darda, whereas the Iraqi troops recited the Quran in the dialect of Abdullah bin Marzud and Abu Musa Ash'ari. Both groups, being recent converts, considered their respective dialect superior or accurate over that of the other group. Some of them went to the extent of declaring the others as pagans. Hazrat Hudayfa drew the attention of the Caliph towards a serious danger of disunity among Muslims. The Caliph acted quickly and appointed a team of Hazrat Zayd bin Thabit, Hazrat Abdullah bin Zubair, Hazrat Esaid bin Ulaz and Hazrat Abd Rahman bin Harith. This team prepared the copies of the Mushaf-i Hafsa. In these copies the surahs were arranged in the order of recitation, Tartib-i Tawqifi. These copies were sent to various provinces of the Muslim Empire along with the reciters in order to ensure a standard version of recitation. On Hazrat Uthman's orders, all the variants including many incomplete copies were burned. B. It was a wise decision to collect the scattered portions of the last divine message after the demise of God's last messenger. The Prophet had really not instructed his followers about compiling the Quran, and therefore, Hazrat Abu Bakr was initially reluctant to do so. He, however, convinced by Hazrat Umar's advice, used his discretionary powers and ordered compilation of the Quran. If this team of the Prophet's successors had not done so, the entire Ummah might have become the literalist, instead of using its wisdom to cope with the new challenges. The Prophet had trained the companions to conduct ijma or qiyas in order to deal with new challenges. Compilation of the Quran became an example of ijma of the whole Muslim world. Finally, the 3 caliphs fulfilled God's promise mentioned in the Quran: "We indeed sent down the message and we will surely guard it against corruption." 15:9, Al-Hijr. 3a. The Prophet was described as humble and just. Giving examples from his life, write about events that describe these qualities. 10b. How can Muslims today apply the Prophet's example of humility when dealing either friends or strangers? 4a. Humble. The Prophet behaved in humble way throughout his life. Both in Makkah and Medina, He lived a simple life, though in Medina several companions and his wives were always eager to assist him in daily chores of life. He used to mend his clothes and shoes, clean his house and milk his goats himself. He encouraged others to do the same by saying, "One who works for himself is a friend of God." His food, garments and bed were unusually simple, and he often wore patched garments. He would take his food, while sitting on the floor, and say, "I am only a servant, I eat like a servant or a slave eats, and I sit as any servant sits." He participated in the construction of the mosque in Medina with his followers. Similarly, he worked with his companions while digging the trench before the siege of Medina by the Allies in 5 AH. He suffered more hunger than his companions but continued to raise their morale. He never considered himself above others and did not like his followers to give him a standing ovation. He valued those around him by seeking their advice before making any major decision. When he entered Mecca victoriously, he did not display any pomp or show, nor did he look down upon his enemies. Instead, he bowed down on his camel in such a way that his beard touched the camel's back. In this posture, he was reciting the Quran and thanking God. He strictly forbade his army from expressing any spirit of revenge or pride against the Meccan pagans. The Prophet did not like to be treated as a king. Hazrat Abu Dar narrated, "Once I observed Salman and Bilal arriving in the presence of the Prophet. Salman out of respect fell down at the Prophet's feet and kissed them. The Prophet admonished him by saying, 'Do not perform acts that the people performed for their emperors. I am just a servant from amongst the servants of God.' He entered Mecca in such a humble way that his head bowed down on his camel while his beard touched the back of the camel. Instead of acting in a proud and victorious way, he was reciting the Quranic verses. The Prophet demonstrated a strong sense of justice and urged his followers to do the same. He observed justice against himself, his close relatives and companions. Hazrat Abdullah bin Masood reported an event of the Battle of Badr. Hazrat Abu Lubaba and Hazrat Ali accompanied the Prophet, and it was the Prophet's turn to walk. The two companions said, "We will walk instead of you and let you ride." The Prophet replied, "You two are not stronger than me, and I am not in less need of rewards than you." Once a rich woman named Fatima, from Banu Makhzum tribe, was found guilty of theft. Her family sought the help of Hazrat Usama bin Zayd in order to influence the Prophet for her forgiveness. The Prophet remarked, "What destroyed the nations before you was that if a noble among them stole, they would forgive him, and if a poor person stole, they would inflict legal punishment on him. By God, if Fatima bint Muhammad stole, I would cut off her hand." On another occasion, a Muslim called Taramar stole a shield from his Muslim neighbor. He cleverly hid the shield in a Jew's house. The matter was reported to the Prophet, and on investigation, the Jew stated, "Taramar hid the shield in my house." Taramar's relatives asked the Prophet to punish the Jew. The Prophet, however, received a revelation, and he announced that the Jew was innocent and that the Muslim had stolen the shield. The 3 Jewish tribes of Medina were also given punishments after their repeated violation of the Charter of Medina. The Prophet did justice with all his wives. He was fair when dividing matters between his wives, both when traveling and when resident in Medina. He always gave equal time to all his wives. He instructed, "Whoever has 2 wives and favors one of them over the other, he will come on the day of resurrection with one of his sides leaning." He, therefore, forbade his followers from giving one wife preferential treatment over another one. B. Muslims can observe humbleness in several ways. They should take initiative in greeting fellow Muslims, whether they're friends or strangers. They should remember this hadith: give food and greetings to those you know and those you do not know. In sports or other walks of life, they should not look down upon their rivals. They should instead express gratitude to God. Many Muslim sportsmen perform sajda in the playground after making some huge achievement. They should treat their employees kindly by not imposing on them a bossy attitude, believing that God had arranged a division of work for his servants. They should give their servants good quality food, and gift them new clothes on special occasions like the 2 Eids. They should participate in community welfare activities like cleaning their surroundings, including mosques and parks, without considering such acts as menial or low. 4a. The Prophet died in 632. Write about the events of the final year of his life. 10. B. The farewell sermon given by the Prophet contains teachings for Muslims of all times. Explain how two of these teachings can be applied today. 4. ANS, A. Last year of the life of the Prophet, 631 to 632 AD or 10 AH 11 AH, was marked by a number of important events, the most important being his farewell pilgrimage and sermon. In 9 AH, several delegations from all over Arabia came to the Prophet and embraced Islam. Treaties were signed with them and they promised to remain loyal to Islam. The 9 AH is, therefore, known as the Year of Delegations Aamul Wufud. The Prophet dispatched Hazrat Khalid bin Walid to the tribe of Banu Harith of Najran and instructed him to first invite them peacefully to Islam. The tribe accepted Islam without reluctance and visited the Prophet in Shawwal, 10 AH. In Ramadan 10 AH, he recited the Quran twice before Angel Jibreel and this is called Ada Ayak Hira. During the last days of Dhi Qaada, 10 AH, the Prophet asked his companions to prepare for the Hajj. On 25th Dhi Qaada, he explained the Hajj rituals after Zuhar prayer and left for Makkah with 90,000 followers, all reciting the Talbiyah, expression of submission to God. The Prophet rode his camel Kaswa and reached Makkah on 4th Dhi Hajj. Reaching close to the Kaaba, he made a supplication and then entered the sacred mosque to perform the tawaf of the Kaaba and the sa'i between the Safa and Marwa hills. On 8th, he left for Mina and spent night there. Here he received the last complete surah of the Quran, Surah 110, Al-Nasr, the Help. His next destination was Arafat where he observed the stay on 9th Dhi Hajj from Zuhr to Maghrib. Here he delivered the historic sermon from the Mount of Mercy. He addressed 124,000 pilgrims that had come from all parts of Arabia and told them it might be his last address to them. O people, listen to my words for I don't know whether, after this year, I shall be amongst you again. He highlighted the importance of the Quran and Sunnah for the guidance of Muslims by saying, I leave behind me two things, the Quran and the Sunnah, and if you follow these, you will never go astray. He reminded them that all humans would stand accountable before God on the Day of Judgment, and so, they should follow the right path. He affirmed that he was the last messenger and there would be no prophet or apostle after him and no new religion would be revealed. The Prophet stressed on the security of life, property and honor of every Muslim by saying, just as you regard this month, this day, this city as sacred, so regard the life and property of every Muslim as a sacred trust. He summed up the importance of the pillars of Islam by enjoining the Muslims, worship God, say your 5 daily prayers, fast in Ramadan and give your wealth in zakat. Perform Hajj if you can afford it. Similarly, he emphasized on the rights of women and slaves in a Muslim society and instructed his followers to treat both kindly. He said, it is true that you have certain rights regarding you women, but they also have rights over you. Treat your women well and be kind to them. Regarding the rights of slaves, he said, feed your slaves such food as you eat, and clothe them with what you wear. This way he ordered to fulfill the basic needs of slaves so that the concept of slavery underwent a revolutionary change in an Islamic state. The Prophet also reiterated abolition of usury riba and strictly forbade his followers from this practice of exploiting the weak. He categorically declared, all interest obligations shall henceforth be waived. He then announced waiving of interest by giving named examples. Finally, he made God witness and asked all to convey his message to all those who could not attend his sermon. He then offered Jurain, combining Zuhr and Ars, and right then he received the last revelation, this day have I perfected your religion for you, completely my favor upon you and have chosen for you Islam as your religion, 5:3, Al-Ma'idah. At sunset, he left for Muzdalifah where he offered the Maghribain, combined Maghrib with Isha, and spent night. After the Fajr prayer, he came to the Mashar al-Haram, faced the Qibla and prayed to God. Before sunrise, he moved to Mina to perform Rumi of Jamara-i-Aqaba. Soon Hazrat Ali joined him from Yemen. Then he sacrificed 63 camels, one for each year of his life. Then he performed Tawaf-i-Ifada and then Sa'i between the Safa and Marwa hills. He was back to Mina the same day to spend 3 nights and perform Rumi of all 3 Jamarat till 12th Dhul Hajj. This way, he demonstrated the complete method of Hajj. After his last Hajj, the Prophet started his journey for Medina. At Ghadir Qum, he delivered a brief speech at the end of which he raised Hazrat Ali's hand in his hand and said, "Of whomsoever I am Mawla, Lord Friend, this Ali is his Mawla, too." This is taken by the supporters of Hazrat Ali as an indication of making him as Prophet's successor. Finally, he reached Medina. By the end of 10 he received a letter from Musailma in which he claimed prophethood and offered the Prophet to give half of Arabia to him. The Prophet rejected his claim. In Safar 11 632 AD, he fell ill with severe headache and fever. On the 5th day of his illness he shifted to Hazrat Aisha's apartment. Soon he appointed Hazrat Abu Bakr as Imam to lead the daily prayer. He called for his wives, his daughter Hazrat Fatima and his grandsons, Hazrat Hassan and Hazrat Hussein. He whispered in Hazrat Fatima's ear that he was going to leave this world, on which she cried. Then he whispered again that she would be the first one to see him in paradise. This statement cheered her up. On the last day of his life, 12th Rabi ul Awwal, he came to the mosque, offered prayer with Hazrat Abu Bakr, and begged forgiveness from God. He issued a number of instructions to his followers, e.g. about religious duties and rights of others. He returned to Hazrat Aisha's apartment where, praying in a whisper, he breathed his last in her arms. Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Abbas bathed his body and buried him in Hazrat Aisha's apartment. His death came as a big shock to his followers, and it was Hazrat Abu Bakr who calmed down the shocked Muslims. B. The Prophet, in his farewell sermon, declared all humans equal by saying, "No Arab is superior to a non-Arab, nor is a non-Arab superior to an Arab." Muslims today need to learn a lot from this declaration of the Prophet, and should not boast of their lineage or caste. They should promote a culture of intermarriages between members of different lineage or other families. Genuine Muslims do not take pride in their lineage or caste system, considering some castes superior or inferior. The Prophet also forbade usury interest. Muslim states should try to replace interest-based banking with Islamic banking based on mudariba or musharaka. In these systems, a kind of joint investment is made, and the investors agree to share both profit and loss. In traditional banking, there are no such agreements. The Quran warns Muslims about riba and instructs them to practice trade. 5a. The Prophet allowed some of the early Muslims to move to Abyssinia. Write about the events of this migration. 10b. Can this migration be compared to the migration of some Muslims today? Give reasons for your answer. 4. A. Persecutions and opposition by Quraysh got intensified from 610 to 615 AD. They targeted the slaves and the poor Muslims like Hazrat Bilal, Hazrat Zanira, Hazrat Ammar bin Yasir and his parents, and Hazrat Kabab bin al-Arat. At the same time, conversion of Hazrat Hamza further angered the Quraysh. They redoubled their opposition to Islam. The Prophet then received the divine permission, "Good is for those who do good in this world, and God's earth is spacious." 39:10, Al-Zumar. He allowed some of his followers to migrate to Abyssinia, an African state west of Arabia. The Prophet knew that Ashamar, who held the title of Najashi or the Negus, was a fair ruler of Abyssinia, Ethiopia. So, he allowed some of the Muslims to migrate to Abyssinia. Accordingly, in Rajab of the 5th year of prophethood, 615 AD, a group of 12 men and 4 women left Makkah. They included Hazrat Uthman and his wife Hazrat Ruqayya. The Prophet on this occasion remarked, "They are the first people to migrate in the cause of God after Ibrahim and Lot." This was the first migration or the first phase of migration to Abyssinia. These emigrants found a safe haven in Abyssinia under the just and kind rule of King Negus. In Ramadan of the same year, the Prophet received verses of Surah 53, Al-Najm, that he recited before a huge crowd by the Kaaba. All the pagans were moved by the tone of these verses, and they bowed down along with the Prophet. The rumor of their conversion reached Abyssinia, and the emigrants came back to Makkah. However, They were once again targeted by the Maccans who refused to believe in the Prophet. Shortly afterwards, a second batch of emigrants left Mecca, comprising 83 men and 19 women. This was the second migration to Abyssinia. These emigrants, too, found solace and comfort in Abyssinia, much to the dismay of the Quraysh. The Qurayshite chiefs got worried over this new development and, apprehending the possible growth of Islam, they decided to counter the move. Two notable Maccans, Amr bin Ulaz and Abdullah bin Rubiya, were dispatched to influence the Negus against the Muslim emigrants. They carried rich bribes with them and complained to the military generals as well as the king Negus about the escape of their fellow Maccans. The emigrants, they blamed, had renounced their religion not for the sake of Christianity but for a new religion. The king summoned the emigrants, who included such notables as Hazrat Uthman, Hazrat Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib and Hazrat Ja'far bin Abu Talib, all with an influential background. Negus interviewed them about Islam, and Hazrat Ja'far bin Abu Talib, who led the Muslims, delivered a convincing speech before the Negus. He said, "O king, we were ignorant people. We worshipped idols, ate carrion, and committed all sorts of injustice. Brother wronged his brother, the strong exploited the weak. In these circumstances a noble man, Hazrat Muhammad, called us to Islam, taught us to renounce idol worship, be truthful, abstain from bloodshed, be good to others, avoid fornication, offer prayers, observe fasts and pay the charity. We abandoned all evil practices, and for this, were deemed guilty and our people turned against us." Then he recited the following verses of Surah Maryam, and make mention of Mary in the book, when she withdrew from her people unto a place towards the east, and secluded herself from them, and we sent unto her our spirit. He said, "I am only a messenger from your Lord, that I may give you the news of the birth of a holy son." 19:16-21, Maryam. The Negus and his generals were deeply moved, and they felt their hearts softened by the recitation. Then Negus said, "This has truly come from the same source as that which Jesus brought." Then he turned to the Makkan envoys and said, "You may go, for by God, I will not deliver them unto you, they shall not be betrayed." They, however, returned to the king the following morning and persuaded him to ask the emigrants their beliefs about Jesus. The king summoned the Muslims again and asked them about Jesus Christ. Hazrat Ja'far replied, "Jesus is the slave of God and his messenger and his spirit and his word which he cast unto Mary the Blessed Virgin." The Negus took up a piece of wood and said, "Jesus, the son of Mary, exceeds not what you have said by the length of this stick." He allowed Muslims to live there and sent Maccans back. B. In modern times many Muslims are forced to leave their homeland due to a threat to their lives. For example, Rohingya Muslims are facing very hard times in Myanmar, Burma at the hands of non-Muslim extremists. They have to seek asylum in Bangladesh or some remote non-Muslim or Muslim states. Often they have to live in refugee camps, and this is unlike the migration to Abyssinia. Those with a good fortune manage to start a new phase of life with varying degrees of success. However, regardless of all this, they should believe in God's promise, and those who migrate in the cause of God, certainly will God provide them with sustenance. 2258, Al-Hajj. Many other migrants from Syria or Afghanistan manage to live comfortably in the advanced Western countries where practicing religion is a personal matter. In such countries, the Muslim emigrants can practice their religion freely. New Zealand and Canada are great examples in this regard.